Thank you for listening to the Old English D podcast. New episodes are live every Tuesday, so make sure to subscribe and follow to keep up to date on all the new episodes. And as we always say, go Tigers.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Old English D, a Detroit Tigers podcast. I'm, of course, one of your hosts, Kasey, as always joined by Josh. Oh, man, we are here. This is the last pod before the regular season commences, my friend. I've already heard too much about March Madness and brackets, and I'm already over it. Oh, are we in as high a spirits as I am, my friend?
I'm now on board with the let's cut out at least a week of spring training. Because I could do with some real baseball.
It dragged.
Already.
It dragged.
The last
dude.
week and a half.
This last rough. That's exactly what I was gonna say. And we'll get into it. We're not gonna do the 3 takeaways for this week because it's of course our predictions episode. So we're not gonna kind of bog down with all those things. Tigers had an amazing spring training and probably the best one in recent memory. And to not let ourselves get too carried away with high vibes and good vibes and things, we're not going to necessarily read too much into everything that happened, and instead we're just going to focus on this coming year. Because yes, it is our predictions episode. We look forward to this episode every single year. And a couple things to get ahead. Before we get into our predictions, we have the final roster spots starting to take place. We actually have real baseball to talk about that already happened in Seoul, South Korea. It's going to be a big episode, and I'm very, very excited. Are you ready, my friend?
I've been ready, but it's going to be an amazing episode. This. And not to get off on a tangent, I'll make it quick here, but this predictions podcast, always, the last 2 times, it's really taken me back to our first episode and the naive, optimistic guys that we were about how the team was going to take shape back in 2021. And just it brings back a lot of memories of where we started, and because obviously our first episode was our predictions podcast for the 2021 season, and so much has happened since then, and it's always nice to kind of come back to this format of going back and forth on our takeaways for the year and what we're hoping to see. So I do look forward to this podcast. It's a yearly tradition at this point.
Yeah, it's crazy we've already been doing that. This will be the 3rd year that we've done the entirety of the season, and I think we thought that things were going to go a little bit differently for the last 2 years. Obviously, 2021 we were very high on things, didn't go well. 2022, same thing. I guess 2022 was wasn't 2022 the first year that we actually did the predictions or whatever for the 2022 season, and then we went into the season and then 2023 because this will be season 3, right?
I guess you're right. Yeah, I've got all my numbers mixed up.
Yeah, well, it gets all weird. It gets all weird because we began probably in the off season of 2021, so that it gets all kind of weird. But because 2022 was awful, right?
Yeah.
That was the 66 win year. Last year was obviously a little bit better, 78 wins, and we started to feel like things were coming together, even though we realistically had a pretty terrible time except for August and September, because the team wasn't at full strength pretty much the entirety of the year. And this year I don't know about you, but have some pretty high hopes for everything that can be. So our predictions will hopefully be mostly positive and trending in the right direction, and hopefully express our optimism for the 2024 season as a whole. But yeah, dude, I'm excited to get into baseball. I'm so over spring training, tired of talking about fake baseball. I don't know what it is about this year. It seems like it's taken just forever, but we're finally here. This is the week of baseball, and we have finally arrived. So without further ado, course, this is the Old English G, where you and I get together and talk about all things Detroit Tigers baseball. You can find us at the Old English D Pod on all the socials and wherever you get your podcasts on a regular basis. Josh, the Tigers won 20 games in spring training. They might win 21 games in spring training. They might not even lose double-digit games. And I know we can't read into it, but that's crazy.
I struggle to get super excited about the record of spring training, and of course everyone's going to talk about it's the first time we've won 20 games in spring training since 2012. Obviously, we all know what happened in 2012, but I think it really just speaks to the depth of the squad, because a lot of these wins that we are talking about in spring training have come to fruition late in games when we've got a lot of our AA, AAA players in the game, and they're performing against, some like competition, some, overmatched competition, in all honesty. So I think it more speaks about our organizational depth than it does about the major league squad necessarily. But either way, it's a positive, and I don't think you can ever complain about winning games, whether they are that meaningful or not.
Yeah, and I always try to think about, just to kind of ground myself in where we're at with spring. I always think about that Jim Leland quote when we were super good, kind of like the 2012 years, the 2010 years that you're referring to. He would always want his spring training squad, whatever that looked like, to go 500. If you're hovering around 500, that's a good thing, because one, that you're trending in the right direction, how to get wins, and you're kind of getting back in the swing of things. But then two, you're not getting the fan base too excited for anything that's coming, and that's kind of where I'm struggling, where it's okay, what if we go out and we don't win the series against the White Sox? The games that matter, did we waste all the good vibes? Did we waste all the good swings of the bat, the good pitches, all the strikeouts? Did we waste all of those things way too early? And so that's what you just kind of really have to really sit with for a minute, and really just be able to be okay, it's just spring, but there's a lot of things. I mean, they had to win those games, right? And obviously all of the somehow I'm saying that they had to be doing something right, and all of the things that AJ's been preaching, all the things that Scott's been preaching, all the way throughout the entire managerial staff. They had to be saying all the right things, and I think the vibes are just super high overall for the team. Now, couple reasons why the vibes might have taken a little bit of a hit this past week is the Tigers finally made their biggest roster cuts of the spring, and they weren't without some surprises, for sure. First, the facts. So, Drew Anderson, Akil Baddoo, Justin Henry Malloy, Ryan Kreidler, and our boy Matt Manning will not be with the Tigers to begin the season. Josh, just me saying that Matt Manning is not going to be on the team come opening day is incredibly surprising. And this goes back to a couple episodes ago when I was saying I don't think there's a chance that they don't take all 6 starters. Whether that be they piggyback someone, whether that be they allow for someone to come out of the bullpen, a little bit more of a long reliever role, just to eat up some innings. I didn't think there was any way that they got out of camp and didn't bring all 6 players. They did. And now we're in a situation where, one, Matt Manning isn't the happiest camper, which is very fair. I don't think I'd want him to be very happy right now. He's gone on record and said that he's pretty disappointed in what happened. And AJ said as much, that, when he gave him the news, one, it's not easy news to give. It's not good, easy news to receive. And then he's kind of glad that Matt Manning is not necessarily taking it the best. But when you look at, one, the spring that he had, and two, the other options that were there for that spot, Casey Mize, Reese Olson, I kind of think they made the right choice. If they were going to cut someone, and if it came down to that last start that Matt had, I think it very much was the right choice. What do you think?
It's really kind of sad for Matt Manning that it feels like the decision to send him to AAA was based on that last start. I don't think it was necessarily fully based on that last start because he had a really good spring, and I think that does earn him a little bit of credit. 16 innings pitched, 19 strikeouts, a 3.38 ERA. For spring training, those are really good numbers. Less than a 1 WHIP for him. It is a little bit frustrating for him, but I think it speaks to something that I really noticed this whole entire spring. The Tigers are really trying to hold on to their starters and keep them starters. Whether it's Sawyer Gibson Long not rushing him to rush him into a bullpen role, whether it's Casey Mize really pushing him to make the team straight up as a starter. They'll obviously have to limit his innings a little bit. You know, probably keeping both Manning and Olsen as starters and just, having them start in AAA or the majors respectively. It just speaks to the fact that the Tigers still value all of those guys as starting pitchers. And I think they don't want to lose that weapon that they have in all of these really good starters. You can say what you like, but I do believe Bo Brisky is a better reliever. And so that's the reason why he's really just fully committed now to this relief role. I think his stuff plays better to it, which is why he hasn't stayed as that. When it comes to a guy like Alex Faedo, I think if he doesn't make the team, and we'll get into that here in a little bit, but if he doesn't make the team, I think he definitely goes back to AAA and probably gets some starts, which is really good for him because I think his stuff has looked pretty good this spring, all things considered. And then on the other side, like Bo Brisky, I think Joey Wentz I think he may have found his groove coming out of the bullpen. It might be the best place for him and give him kind of a lifeline career-wise. That also has some question marks to it. But when it comes to Matt Manning, I agree with you. I think that out of all of the guys, he had to be the one to go down. I think Olsen provides way more upside out of that 4 or 5 slot in the rotation. I think you have to keep Mize and give Mize the opportunity to get demoted, if that makes sense, and in the least hostile way possible. I think you have to do like you did with Turnbull last year and give him the opportunity to work out some stuff in the majors within the first month or two before stuff comes up, because inevitably things are going to come up. I've said this multiple times. I tweeted it out a few days ago. There are a lot of guys that are not going to make this team that feel like they should have made this team. But we are going to see them all at some point. Whether it's for the Tigers, whether they get traded for something else and they make a major league roster somewhere else. All of these guys are good baseball players and they will play in the major leagues. Now, whether it's opening day or not, obviously not for some. But if you had told me at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of the offseason rather, that Matt Manning, Akil Baddoo, Justin Henry Malloy, and Ryan Kreidler would all be in AAA at the start of this year, I'd be pretty amazed at some of those names. Specifically, I think Manning and Malloy. But the more that has gone on this camp and the more players they brought in, such as Gio Urshela and Mark Canna, I think it's just come to this, and the Tigers feel like they have value in those guys, and a guy like Malloy could use a little bit more time in AAA. I don't know. I think Malloy and Kreidler, out of everybody, got the shortest end of the stick, because I think both of them played and have earned the right to play in the major leagues. I think Ryan Kreidler specifically has gotten the short end of the stick quite often the last 2 years, and hopefully there's a spot for him to really prove that here soon. But out of everybody, I think I feel the worst for him.
Maybe we really didn't need to spend $100 and some odd million on a shortstop when we were all begging Al Avila to spend all the money that he did. I mean, it kind of.
Remember how much he talked up Kreidler?
Well, right, and what's sad about it is Kryler's really never been given a fair shot. Now, granted, there were plenty of injury situations, there were plenty of chances that he not necessarily failed at, because I don't think that's fair. I think what the Kreidler that they were expecting and the Kreidler that came were two different people. And so when he wasn't as explosive as they thought maybe he could be, that's when they were like, okay, yeah, no, we really do need a shortstop. But I think all this kid's done throughout all of the adversity he's faced is, besides gotten hurt, because you can say that, he's shored up his defense. And I mean, like, there was really never a question about that, but like now, like it's a forefront of conversation. Whereas like now we compare Javi and Kreidler, and you can even maybe give Kreidler the leg up because he actually makes the routine play that Javi doesn't. But then too, he's really taken a lot of strides forward on the offense. He's never going to be an offense first shortstop. That's just not really what we're getting with Ryan Kreidler. But he showed a lot of upside this spring. And I think, like you mentioned, I think he will be on the team at some point, whether that be a shortstop role, whether that be another utility player, which I think is more likely to happen. He's not bad all around the infield. And he can really be plugged in at any position. So, I mean, really look for him to kind of be gaming for that McKinstry, Ibanez kind of role, even though Ibanez obviously had the best spring of his life. And to that point, for all these guys, Matt Manning included, Drew Anderson included, all of them, it's really a testament to how good their competition did. It really is not saying much about how poor of a spring they had, because really none of these guys, maybe outside of Baду, had a poor spring. And it's just that their competition did so much better. And I think with Manning specifically, there's a couple things that the Tigers were working on, and it kind of it sparked some interesting conversation, at least in my inner dialogue. When AJ started talking about in his last spring start, when he was doing the interview with Bally Sports and Jason Benetti, he mentioned that they're having Manning pitch only out of the stretch. And honestly, I hadn't even really realized it until he said something. And usually I pick up on these things pretty quickly, but I didn't really realize that they actually had changed it. And yeah, in fact, he was pitching completely out of the stretch. And so what that tells me is that they still don't feel like there's a good mechanical foundation there. They don't feel like there's still a repeatable delivery that can be executed pitch to pitch, and then they can kind of branch off on that. They're still working on mechanical tweaks for him. They're still working on, trying to harness as much control and velocity as possible. And so when you start getting into those conversations, I am kind of like, okay, that they do kind of view this as a little bit more of a work in progress. And that obviously, Feder and company have done a great job with other works in progress, but for some reason, we just cannot get Matt Manning to where we want him to be. And so they're like, okay, let's just take a step back. Let's reassess, and let's go to AAA, where not everyone's eyes are going to be on you, and try and figure out and try to hone everything in. He's also working on a couple new pitches. He's got a hard slider and a little bit slower slider that he's working on. It just seems like out of all of the 6 options, he is the most work in progress. And so when you kind of look at it in that lens, it starts to become a little bit more clear that he was the choice. Now, I will say, it puts Mize and Olsen on the hot seat like they've never been on before. I didn't think there was a chance ever that we'd ever see Casey Mize in a Toledo Mud Hens jersey ever again. It was going to be, if it was going to be something, it was going to be another AAA jersey. It was not going to be the Toledo Mud Hens. I'll put it that way. I think they are kind of all in on Casey Mize, but this kind of says that, no, there's a real shot. There's a real chance that Casey Mize in 2024 gets optioned back to Toledo. And with seeing how much he's matured over the last 2 years, that we really haven't seen him and, tried to really work on himself in his repertoire as he's been injured, I don't see him as a AAA player, period. And not saying I see Matt Manning in that case, but like I just see Casey Mize as a major league pitcher. So it's crazy to me that could even be a possibility, but it is. I think Olsen and Mize, they might want to be watching their backs, because there's a real chance that either one of them at the first sign of trouble is the next call to go down. I think they have a very interesting pitch limiter on Casey Mize that's going to have to be continually, checked on and worked on, and figure out what is the best solution for that. He's not going to pitch over 120 innings, and so does he kind of slot back into the bullpen at some point? Does that open up the opportunity for Manning to come back? I don't know. I don't know. We'll see how all that shapes out. But they have a plan, and they will stick to it. Now, real quick, this is something I wanted to bring up to you, and I haven't even said this to you, so I'm curious how you're going to react. If there was a possibility that Matt Manning was going to be sent down, it almost makes me even more frustrated that they didn't trade him in the offseason. Now, I get it. Depth is everything, and they're going to need Matt Manning at some point this year. But if they really believe in Sawyer Gipson-Long, if Alex Faedo even showed half of what he was able to do this spring, if somehow Joey Wentz has a bounce back year, I mean, like, there is still plenty of depth outside of Matt Manning, and you know that his value was the highest this offseason. Like, it's the highest it's going to be until he proves himself again. And so whatever that trade would have looked like for some kind of young, controllable hitter that, maybe we overvalue Matt Manning, or maybe we don't. Who knows what Scott Harris was able to, or is able to get on the trade value, or on the trade market rather, for his value. But I feel like that should have been examined just a little bit more if you thought there was any inkling of a chance that Reese Olson would inch out Matt Manning for that fifth spot. Am I crazy?
Yes. Very.
Okay. All right. That's fair. Okay. That's fair.
The thing about it is,
that's fair.
I think when you talk about Matt Manning's value, I don't necessarily agree with the highest it will ever be, or not will ever be. You didn't say that.
I'm not saying ever, but no, I am saying for an extended period of time.
Because he is coming off of a very injury-plagued year. I think that does take down his value quite a bit. And the fact that
he showed he was healthy though the second half of the year.
He did, and he performed well too. The thing about it is, the starting pitching market this offseason was all over the place. Michael Lorenzen just signed for a deal that was shockingly cheap with the Rangers.
But Dylan Cease also got traded. Dylan Cease got traded before Blake Snell signed.
Right.
So, trades were more, honestly, they were probably more opportunistic for a lot of these owners.
I just think Scott Harris likes his guys. And I know Matt Manning isn't necessarily considered his guy because he didn't draft him, but he's a guy that he's had for a couple years now, and he's seen the strides that he's made. I don't hate this, because the only thing that could happen now is I don't know that his stock can go down much further, especially with the spring he had. He's probably going to be decent in AAA. And all that means is the Tigers can still deal from that depth in this case. When we get to the end of July, you never know where we're going to be and what we're going to need, or who we're going to need to, in the event that we're under 500 by a little bit, we deal Maeda or Flaherty, and then we're going to need that depth to replace it with, and he gets the opportunity to pitch and prove that value for next offseason. There's still a lot of different buttons Scott Harris could push here, and I don't necessarily think rushing into a trade because you think we might have some depth this offseason was going to be the best move.
That's fair. And those are all fair points. I do think that that's the whole point of a trade. It is a risky proposition, and so you have to do it at some point, no matter what. And yeah, I mean, obviously you weren't willing to part with him, but I'm curious why that conversation didn't come up more in the off season, because it just seemed like it was kind of the time. We've tried everything, we've done everything we feel like that we can. It just doesn't seem to be going the direction we want. Let's see what we can, kind of get in the trade market. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't seem to be Scott's, obviously, MO that we've discovered. And yes, I'm happy to have the depth, because God forbid someone gets injured at some point. So the last meaningful roster conversation to still happen are these 2 remaining bullpen spots. And AJ confirmed that the 4 people that are vying for these spots are, of course, Bo Brisky, Joey Wentz, Alex Faedo, and Miguel Diaz, who we haven't talked about a lot. Miguel Diaz has kind of flown under the radar. He honestly hasn't gotten too many spring innings. And so it's kind of surprising to see him in this position, but it's because he's in a very similar position as Joey Wentz, where he's out of options. And so if we were going to try to send him down, he would first have to pass through waivers, and that would open up to another team to possibly take him. And I think because of this, and because teams just seemingly typically go with the path of least resistance and the path that leads to the least amount of roster churn, I think our unfortunately our bullpen is gonna include Joey Wentz and Miguel Diaz, at least to begin with, even though we're talking about Bo Brisky, who has thrown, I think, 13 innings pitched with no hits and like 1 walk or something. And Alex Faedo, who's had an amazing spring, the best we've seen him since his Florida Gator days. I just think that they really want to hold on to these 2 arms, and they want to see what they have with them, just to see if they can actually pitch meaningful major league innings. And I think that's where we're going to be. And as soon as they start failing, or if they start failing, then we start having conversations of bringing them up. But who do you think grabs those last couple roster spots?
In my estimation, I think the only reason that Miguel Diaz is even in this conversation is because of that lack of options. I think if he has options, he would already be in AAA or with the AAA
Agreed.
squad. That makes the decision interesting, and I think it, again, like you said, it makes this whole deal very intriguing. I think out of everybody, somehow, some way, and in the nicest way possible, Joey Wentz is somehow the leader in the clubhouse for one of these 2 roles. He's had a decent spring. Again, he is out of options, and I think it's been made clear that AJ really wants to give him one last shot here. And to go back to a conversation we already had, I think the answer for the Casey Mize innings conundrum is having Joey Wentz on this team to piggyback off of Mize and help with those innings, eat up some innings.
Oh man,
it's tough.
Yeah,
it's I don't like it. Didn't like it coming out of my mouth, but when it comes to the last 3, when we go to Bo Brisky, Alex Faedo, and Miguel Diaz, the major league proven pitcher amongst those 3 is Bo Brisky. He's been given the most big league opportunities, both in the major leagues and this spring. And when you pit Bo Brisky against Miguel Diaz, Bo Brisky with options and Miguel Diaz without options, I still think if you're fielding your best baseball team, Bo Brisky makes this team. Now, do AJ Hinch and Scott Harris see that the same way? Do they make the decision to put the best baseball team on the field, or do they make the best decision for long term and try to keep these guys in the organization? I really hope they make the right decision, and I think the right decision is Bo Brisky and Joey Wentz being the 2 that make the team. Faedo, I would feel kind of bad because he's had a decent spring and he's pitched well, but out of those four, I think has the least amount of chance to make the team, unfortunately. Miguel Diaz, again, with that lack of options, I think is kind of holding on by the skin of his teeth. If they are, again, trying to put the best baseball team on the field, Bo Brisky is a part of it. And I would feel...
Yeah, the official... Sorry, go ahead.
I would feel pretty bummed if Bo Brisky isn't in this bullpen.
Mm-hmm. The official Bo Brisky spring training stats are 13.2 innings pitched, 3 hits allowed, 2 walks allowed, 9 strikeouts. Obviously, no earned runs and no runs allowed. I think it would be criminal if they didn't take Bo Brisky, but I'm telling you, dude, I think Scott kind of grits his teeth.
I'm not disagreeing, but
when he lets Miguel Diaz go and someone else picks him up.
When you look at the spring training Miguel Diaz has had, though,
I know.
Less than inspiring. 5 earned runs and 8 innings pitched.
Okay, you're right. And that's the thing. That could probably be the happy medium where he's okay with that. So maybe, he does take Joey Wentz and Bo Brisky, and he doesn't then have to put 2 players through waivers. He just puts 1 player, and maybe Miguel doesn't even get picked up. Maybe it doesn't even come to that. But I feel like as soon as someone puts the waiver claim on Scott, he's like, darn it, I hate this. But yeah, that is a very realistic possibility, and just so we're clear, the possibility that I would prefer, and just not what I think will happen. But they've already shown that they can make the tough decision with the Matt Mannings and the Drew Andersons and stuff, and shout out to Drew Anderson too. I know he didn't get any nods for that final 2 bullpen spots or whatever, but I think we're gonna see him in the majors at some point too. He didn't have the greatest last outing either. The outing before he got cut, but I think he really turned some heads. He signed from Japan, and I think historically sat 92, 93, and then out of nowhere he comes over to the majors, and while he's had a couple stints with major league teams, nothing really that was categorically awesome, and then out of nowhere he's throwing 96, 97 and with a pretty solid breaking ball. So shout out to him. We'll see him probably sometime at some point in a Tigers uniform, but Bo Brisky, Joey Wentz, Miguel Diaz, Alex Faedo, they are the last vying options for the 2 remaining spots, and we should have that update here in the next 24, 48 hours. We'll see. But I would be very surprised if they part with Joey Wentz, and I can't believe I'm saying that here at the end of spring. There was some baseball that took place, surprisingly, in South Korea. You may not have even known, because there were plenty of other stories that made headlines post and during South Korea Seoul series. But before we get into the elephant in the room and the Shohei Ohtani and the Ippei Mizuhara scandal, if you will, let's talk some real baseball, my friend. So did you wake up at 6 a.m. and watch these couple of games here in Seoul, South Korea? Were you a good baseball fan or a bad baseball fan?
Okay, that's a little aggressive. I caught bits and pieces of both games. Can I admit to having stayed awake for the entirety of both games? Absolutely not. Bits and pieces.
Well, I hope you would have stayed awake, because you probably had to work right after. But did you watch them?
Well, I definitely got up and turned the game on and watched the first bit, and then maybe drifted off to sleep again. It did feel like parts of that series were like a fever dream, in part due to the early morning. But I did view quite a bit of the second game. And I clearly that was the game to watch.
That was the barn burner. Yeah, so surprisingly, the Dodgers are not going to win 162 games this year. The Padres and the Dodgers split the opening series of the 2024 MLB season. The Dodgers won the first game 5-2, and the Padres won the second game 15-11. And I think one Yoshinobu Yamamoto wants a little bit of a redo on his first major league start. Overall, I was very, very pleased with how this all went. I loved that this was their first foray into South Korea. Of course, the MLB has been doing this for quite some time when they've opened abroad. And they've done it in Japan, they've done it in Mexico. They've done it in countless other places. This was their first time in South Korea, and it just really is so cool to see how big baseball is in other places. I mean, Korean baseball in general is pretty much treated like football is here. And I wish baseball in America was like this. I mean, like you had people that were just going crazy for this. And so that's awesome to see on every level. I thought ESPN, I watched the ESPN broadcasts. I don't know how the Dodgers broadcasts or any of those, or the Padres broadcasts for that matter. I don't know how those went, but I really liked the ESPN broadcasts. I thought it was cool that they were live. They kind of did a rehash of the KBO 2020 craziness that went on, because of course the KBO was the Korean baseball organization was the only sport that was happening kind of live during 2020 COVID crazy times. And so ESPN took it upon themselves to pack up their bags and go and watch some live sports so they could actually stay open and keep their doors open for the entirety of the 2020 summer season. And special shout out to Daniel Kim, who was the KBO insider during 2020, and they brought him back as the kind of the on-field reporter for ESPN. He had some really cool things. He's done a lot of things for the KBO, and I think he is like kind of like the lead. I don't know who he works for on the interim, but at least for ESPN, he's kind of like the lead representative for KBO baseball. So shout out to him. He did awesome on-field reporting. And then the games themselves, Shohei Ohtani is still going to mash this year. He got his couple hits out of the way, got an RBI. I think he flirted with the fence 4 times. It was just tough to get anything out in the Sky Dome, I guess. He's going to hit a home run. Let's not be worried. And Mookie Betts is pretty good at baseball. He's pretty good at baseball. And Yamamoto is definitely tipping his pitches, whatever that means. Whatever that means, they knew exactly what was coming. But yeah, those are some of my takeaways. What do you take away from the little bit that you were able to watch?
Jake Cronenworth needs to speak to whoever his glove supplier is.
Great point. Great point. I think it was Wilson, and I think they had a bad day.
That was such a weird. If anybody didn't see it, it was a ground ball to first base. Cronenworth playing first base, which was still weird for me for whatever reason. He went to go field it, and mind you, this isn't a screamer we're talking about. This was I think 88 mile an hour ground ball. I think that number's right.
That sounds right. It definitely wasn't over 100 or anything.
No. It was a makeable play. It was a very, I wouldn't say leisurely, but it was again a routine ground ball. And he went to field it, and the webbing on his glove snapped, and the ball went straight through his webbing in his glove.
Never seen anything like it. Never in a Major League Baseball game. Never seen anything like it.
Like someone had cut the strings. Like, that's how easily it went through his glove.
Oh my gosh. You think there was, you think there was foul play?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even think about that. My goodness. Holy cow. Who would even
LB's
be?
never going back
now
to
you got
South
my mind
Korea.
spinning. Holy cow.
What'd you say about Occam's
That's
razor?
crazy.
I don't know.
We'll get into that. I don't think that's the most like obvious answer of any of that. I think the most obvious answer is that he should have checked his flipping glove.
Well, that's what I
he
was.
went on the field.
That's what I was getting to. Is that it's probably not a conspiracy.
Someone
to
said
cut
it.
his glove.
Someone said it too. I don't remember what I was watching or who I was following, but they were like, that could have happened on any of the practice ground balls that they did during the infield. Like the infield tosses. That could have happened at any other point, but it had to happen right then.
Pivotal
what
play
are
in
the
the game.
chances of that? Like, And I mean, that opened the floodgates for the Dodgers. I mean, like it was a relatively close game for 7 innings, and then, and I mean, kudos to the pitching in that first game. But my goodness,
Yeah, that was.
Talk about a bad day for Wilson and Cronenworth and everyone involved.
I'd be interested to see what his glove situation is moving forward, if he's still with Wilson, or that'd be interesting. My second thing that I wanted to say, and this is kind of directly in contrast to something you already said, but Yamamoto has some real questions he needs to answer about his fastball. I don't know whether he is tipping pitches. It is a definite possibility that could be it, but it says something when that's the only pitch that got rocked in his inning of work. Now, whether he is tipping his pitches and the only thing that they can definitely tell is coming is the fastball, that is a possibility, but that's a lot of money to a guy who had never pitched in Major League Baseball and had never seen Major League pitching except for some limited time in the World Baseball Classic. I just, sometimes things aren't as they seem, and this could all be an overreaction by every single baseball fan. He could come out in his next start and absolutely mow down. I think he'll end up pitching against the Cardinals. So he could end up just mowing through the Cardinals in his next outing, pitch 6 shutout innings, and look fantastic. And it could have been nerves. Who knows? But the one pitch that the Padres teed off on was that fastball. And I think out of all of his pitches, that's definitely the one that has the most questions surrounding it in his repertoire. So interesting to see.
Yeah, they just sat on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just sat on it. Like, I mean, he clearly just gets ahead with the fastball all the time, which is, I mean, what a lot of major league pitchers do. They get ahead with the fastball. And so it's like, okay, what was different about him? And I think there was a lot of spring research that the Padres did. I think there was a lot of video that they watched that kind of went to their benefit, because Yamamoto also did not have a great spring. I didn't think it was necessarily going to reflect so much on his one poor inning. But, I mean,
as a pitcher, you have to have a plan B. You have to have a second way to...
His plan B is his splitter, and he also couldn't land that. So when he was having trouble, and they were really not swinging at it either. I mean, that's... And his curveball is still fantastic. He's still got a couple swings and misses on that. So, I mean, you know, like... You can go back and forth of whether he's worth the money, whether it's not worth the money. That's a conversation maybe for a different day and probably further along down the line. But you look at countless other Japanese pitchers who have made the shift. While it wasn't this poor of a debut, I will say this is probably one of the poorest. They all had a little bit of a learning curve. I think Yamamoto is the type of guy that is gonna work to hone in his craft, and he clearly cares a lot about his on-field performance. So he's gonna take all of this. He might even go back to, you know, his old traditional delivery that he kind of ditched. I think it was the beginning of last year, and now he's at this abbreviated kind of interesting thing. But I don't think it's playing as many tricks on major league hitters as it did Japanese players. So I think it'll be an interesting ongoing process for Mark Pryor and company, the Dodgers pitching coach, to try to figure out exactly what it is. But I think hopefully, honestly, for the Dodgers camp, that it was him tipping pitches, and that's an easy fix. But if it wasn't that, that's a little bit harder, and they kind of got to start from ground zero. He's going to have his ups and downs. I mean, you look at Kodai Senga, who didn't have the greatest start to last year for the Mets, but then he clearly emerged as their ace once he finally figured out when to throw that ghost fork and how to use his fastball. I think Yamamoto's he's got to live up in the zone. And for him, up in the zone is a very different location than what he's used to, because he's so short. He probably has to rethink how he throws a fastball in general, but he doesn't typically get it up too often. And so in order to I mean, we're talking about giants here. We're talking about some players that are literally 6'6", And so when you have those kind of players, you've got to be able to pitch at the top of the zone with that 97 mile an hour fastball. And if you're that short, you've got to figure out ways to do it better. So I think he'll be just fine. Bad inning, terrible inning. He couldn't get himself together. I think that a lot of that's just nerves, but I think he will be okay going forward.
A lot of fixes, adjustments, and changes to
you
a guy
definitely don't
who
want
got
$365 million worth of fixes. I hear you. I mean, you definitely don't want that. I get it. But I still think his stuff is elite, and I still think he can lead that rotation for many years to come. Is he Garrett Cole good? Well, even Garrett Cole wasn't Garrett Cole good until 3 years ago. So I digress. Amidst all of this,
here we go.
In the wee hours of the morning, a story broke out of some Dodger camp somewhere that Ippei Mizuhara, the interpreter for Shohei Ohtani, was fired for a lot of unknown reasons, but what we knew at that moment was that there was a lot of money involved and a lot of gambling involved. And so just a very, very, very quick brushback of what happened. And, to be clear, we don't have all of the answers, and really it's not the best to even try to, even guess what happened in any of these situations. But I think we should talk about it at least because it's still an ongoing situation. But yeah, very early before the second game, Ippei got let go by the Dodgers. It seemed like there was some kind of ESPN interview that Ippei was doing, but then it didn't get released. And so there were a lot of quotes that weren't actually publicized, but somehow the Dodgers camp got wind of it. And then Ohtani was involved, obviously, because there was possibly some transactions going to what's the word? Something maker, bet maker, or whatever. What do they call it? Bookmaker. Thank you. I was like, I know I'm going to forget some word in all this. Some kind of bookmaker or bookie that he was involved in sports gambling of some kind. Was it baseball? Was it not? Who knows? All we knew is Ohtani's name was all over this. Ippei's name was all over this. What the heck is happening? And the only facts we had was that Ippei was no longer Ohtani's interpreter, and he was no longer employed by the Dodgers. And there was a story basically going around that Ippei said that he was $4.5 million in debt, and he asked Ohtani, a really good friend and close confidant of Ohtani, to help him pay his gambling debt down. And so that's where these transactions came from that were seen in this bookmaker's wire transfers. And then after all of that information comes out, Ippei just redacts all of his statements. And he's like, nope, I'm not talking anymore. What's happening? And then the only thing we hear from Ohtani's camp is that he's been the subject of massive fraud and a massive scandal. And it seems like he's been stolen from on a massive scale. And we're left with this for days. Just to guess and pontificate and talk about all of these different possibilities that have the biggest number one name in baseball tied to some kind of gambling scandal. And that's about it. Quickly to bring everyone up to speed, Ohtani did hold a press conference tonight. It was all of 10 or 15 minutes long. He did not take any questions. He had a prepared statement that was told through, ironically enough, Yamamoto's interpreter, who is probably now Ohtani's interpreter. But essentially the couple statements that were said was, quote, Ippei has been stealing money from my account and has told lies. quote, all of this has been a complete lie, unquote. And then one more that I wanted to read. Oh yeah, quote, I never agreed to pay off the debt or make payments to the bookmaker, end quote. So of all of the things that Ipe said initially, it seems like Ipe instead stole the money and used them for maybe not only his gambling debt, but maybe he gambled with Ohtani's money too. And Ohtani has nothing to do with this. What is your take on all of this, my friend? What are we in the camp of Ohtani has something to do with this? Doesn't have something to do with this? What are your initial thoughts? This is pretty sad that this is plaguing, obviously the beginning of the MLB season, but also the beginning of the Dodger Ohtani era. And I don't know how quietly this goes away. So what are some of your thoughts on this crazy story that we heard of just a few days ago?
I've been on record multiple times with multiple other situations that I really hate to make statements or just, as you so aptly put it, pontificate about things like this before we hear a lot of facts. I do like to highlight facts when it comes to a lot of these different, off the field situations, because I think it's important to operate from those. What we do know is Ipe has made two very different statements to ESPN regarding this. On two separate days, back-to-back days, he made two very different statements. That's on the record, and it's a fact. Immediately after that, all of the different sides said nothing more about it. All was quiet. There was no talking from anybody. The Ohtani camp clammed up. They said that there was a massive theft that happened, and then said nothing more. Major League Baseball said nothing. The Dodgers said nothing. Ipe then said nothing more. Very, very weird circumstances there. I think everybody can agree. And the facts that as we know of right now are that somehow there is a gambling debt to a bookmaker in California of $4.5 million. We know that for sure. We know for sure that a wire transfer payment was made from an account with Shohei Ohtani's name on it to this bookmaker in the total of $1 million. Two separate payments of $500,000 were made from the account labeled Shohei Ohtani on it. That's who is the owner of the account to the bookmaker. As we know of right now, it seems that both sides have kind of made a statement to this point. Again, you read a lot of Shohei's side of it. We've heard the two sides of Ipe. It's such a strange look right now. There's so many different things that could be happening. If you go out there and search all sports podcasts, everybody's got a take on it. Everybody's got something to say. When it's the biggest player in a major sport, that's going to happen. Most of my ire right now is directed towards the Dodgers and directed towards Major League Baseball. If this truly is on the up and up from the Shohei Ohtani side, Major League Baseball and the Dodgers really needed to take a control of this for the sport's sake off the rip. They needed to say, take ownership of the baseball side of it and say, hey, we understand that there are some allegations regarding Shohei Ohtani and this Ipe interpreter. We are currently investigating alongside of, the federal investigation that is ongoing with this bookmaker, and we will, give more information as needed. Instead, it took Major League Baseball almost a full week to make any sort of a statement whatsoever, and the Dodgers have still said squat about it. besides working with Otani to make his statement and staying in the background. It just makes baseball look very slow and out of touch compared to how the other major sports handle all of this. It is very, very slow looking, very, very, it makes it seem like they don't have a handle on what's going on in their league and what's going on. Because if you're going to make the stand that players can't be betting on sports, or there's a limit on how much the players can bet on sports, or whatever the case may be, then you need to be on top of it and handle it. In this case, this isn't going to go away easy for Major League Baseball. This is not going to be something that just fades into the distance, because there's a federal investigation with federal charges going on with a bookmaker in California where sports gambling is illegal. And there is a payment from an account that is owned by Shohei Ohtani to this illegal bookmaker. That's a factual statement that ties Shohei Ohtani to a crime. Whether he committed this crime, whether it was him that initiated the payments or him that was doing the gambling, that part we don't know. But the fact of the matter is Shohei Ohtani's name is now connected to a federal investigation. And that's not good for Major League Baseball. That's not good for the Dodgers. That's not good for the sport. And no matter which side you fall on this, it's a bad look for baseball. And it's really, really sad. No matter if you think Shohei is just using Ippei as a fall guy for a massive gambling habit, or whether you think Ippei took advantage of Shohei when he first got to America and stole a bunch of his money and Shohei didn't know what was going on. Whichever side you fall on it, this is a awful, awful thing for baseball. And it's really, really sad.
Yeah, for MLB, it strikes me as everyone kind of got caught off guard from this, and that's no excuse for them taking almost a week to release a statement. But I think especially when a federal investigation is going on, they really have to tread carefully. They don't want to necessarily just probably jump on the grenade for Ohtani, because what if he actually did do something? And then they also probably don't want to completely destroy the really good thing that's happening in Korea, at the same time. And so it kind of seems like a lot of parties got blindsided by this. I think Ippei did, because Ippei was there. He was there in Korea with Ohtani for the series, and then he left, it seems like midway through the series when all this went down. But it sounds like he did address the clubhouse at one point and said, hey, there's going to be this news coming out. This is what it's about. So it seems like, he was in the know, and maybe Ohtani was in the know too, but not many other parties were in the know either. And so, when you're dealing with a lot of these, delicate situations, well, MLB definitely should have made a statement sooner. I don't think that they were completely privy to everything that was going to come about. Now, as for Ippei and what he's dealing with right now, one, I just want to say I hope he gets help. If it is his gambling issue, which it seems like it is, I hope that gambling addiction is actually something that strikes me and my family personally. And so when I hear stuff like this, and when I have my own background with it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. It seems like he's really in deep. Hopefully he didn't actually bet on baseball, because that would be a whole other issue, but it definitely seems like there was sports betting involved at some level. So one, I just hope he gets the help that he needs. And two, to people who say that how could Ohtani not know this was happening if he truly was getting stolen from or whatever, I would just posit this, that Ohtani's never really struck me as a guy that's cared about money to an extent. It definitely seems like, he's gotten his bag and he's comfortable with that. But I don't think that he, and again, this is just me talking, but I don't ever think that it was about the money for him. And a lot of the evidence plays out with the way he structured his Dodgers contract, where I get it, he makes money from plenty of other sources, so he really doesn't need the Dodgers money right now. But he just really wants to win a World Series ring. And to the point that actually Daniel Kim made on the ESPN second broadcast of the Dodgers and Padres Soul Series. He was talking about how he served as an interpreter for an MLB player for quite some time. And what was interesting was that, on the field and in the clubhouse, it's very obvious what your job is. You're always with the player, you're always speaking for the player, you're always listening to the player, all of these things. However, there's another side of that coin that not a lot of people talk about, in that you are that player's full-time confidant. You are going grocery shopping for them. You are running errands for them. You are opening bank accounts for them. Something that a lot of Americans take for granted, and people who are living here on visas, people who are living here on, sponsored citizenship on any kind of level, don't have the authorization to do any of these things. And so when you're in Ippei's situation, he probably knew Ohtani's bank account password. He probably knew his bank account number. And obviously now the lawyers have to deal with all of that and probably have to take some action on all of this. But just the people that think that like this is so beyond the realm of possibility. No, I don't think so. I truly, and maybe it is a little bit of Occam's razor in that, you don't want to read too much into something, and it is usually the easiest answer is maybe the truest answer, that he very well could have been taken advantage of. And from you and I's perspective in our history, we worked at a bank. We got talked about elder abuse all of the time. And this obviously isn't necessarily in the same category, but it's right parallel to it, in that you have a situation where someone who's not in the know, not privy to everything that's happening with their personal accounts, and being taken advantage of because someone else has access to them. Obviously, Ohtani's not an elder, but he's maybe not knowledgeable as much as he should be of all of his books and all of his accounts. And so I think it's so possible that this could be going on. And if this guy truly has this problem, it can be a crater in your life, dude. And it can eat away at you, and it can make you do some really heinous things. So again, I may be a little biased in this situation. I may be not be thinking of Ohtani as the villain in any of this. But I do think that he is mostly in the clear, and it's just an unfortunate situation he's found himself in. But did you have any other thoughts before we move on to our season predictions?
No, I think I've said my piece. I am not going to be putting blame on anybody or putting anybody in the clear. I presume everybody until proven. Well, I'm going to try that again. I'm going to presume everyone innocent until proven guilty at this point.
I think you're on the right track. Yeah,
because no one knows the truth here of what's going on. Mm-hmm. I would love to sit here and say, yeah, it's got to be Ippei. Shohei's a nice guy. He clearly can't have done anything wrong, but I don't think that's very professional as a podcast
astute
host.
Yeah, no, it's not it might not be the most astute or the most professional thing to do or whatever. I'm willing to say that it very well could be the most obvious answer, and that is seemingly this situation. But again, if it's not, and it is what it is, whatever, this will not go away very quickly or easily for Ohtani. So it's pretty unfortunate. This is how it's all starting out, but we digress. It's time to talk predictions, my friend. I have laid out, we'll say quite a few. We'll say quite a few different categories we have here. Way more extended than we've done before, because but as you said, we love this. We love this episode. We look forward to this. And you have prepared your picks. I prepared my picks. We don't know each other's picks. And so some of these are going to go quickly. Some of these are going to take a little bit longer. But I think we're just going to rattle them off and kind of talk about them as we go. Does that sound like a plan?
I'm in. Let's do it.
All right. Cool. The first category, and I purposefully left these a little ambiguous just because I like to hear how you define things and how I define things and whatever. So the first category that we went with, and we've done before, best hitter of 2024. So obviously to qualify, you have to be a Detroit Tiger. You have to be on the 26 man and at some point during the year, and we didn't put any like kind of at bats limits or anything. We didn't say it has to be OPS or OBS or any of those different kind of things. We just went with who we define, whatever we may define it, as the best hitter this year. I'm going to kick us off. A little bit of a dark horse pick. Mark Canha. I think Mark Canha, one, he's obviously turned it up quite a bit during spring, but even beyond that, every time he came to bat, usually it was his first at-bat of the game, the broadcast, Bally broadcast obviously, would always show this one graphic of him leading every previous Tigers team for the last 5 years in on-base percentage. If he had been on the team, he would have led the team in on-base percentage. And we get it, guys. He's a good on-base machine. But really, like, I truly do think that he is going to have another amazing on-base year. He's going to get on base quite a bit. But just overall, I think he's going to be our most well-rounded hitter in the lineup. Wherever he hits, he seems to be able to plug in. He seems to be able to get the important hit when he needs to, the clutch hit when he needs to, and also just kind of seems to have that another man up kind of mentality. He doesn't seem to take the spotlight too much. So my best hitter for 2024, Mark Canha. Who do you got?
I like that pick. I really do. And
Thank you.
I would be remiss not to compliment it. I'm going to go with the obvious here and go with Riley Green. I think without putting a jinx on it, I'm going to say it quietly. With a full season of baseball, I think Riley Green can be one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball. And
how many woods are you knocking on right now?
All of them. Every one I've got. Because I genuinely think that this Tigers team they go as Riley goes. And over the last 2 years, that has been super evident. Torque hits better with Riley in the lineup. The whole lineup is just more well-rounded when he's in the lineup. And I think he's going to find a lot more of his power this year. He's really worked hard on that. And I think it's going to be a big boost to the middle of the order. So I doubted I was going to find...
Ground ball hater, Riley Green.
True. I doubted I was going to find a disagreement from you there, so we could probably move on.
No disagreement. I like the pick. We've obviously picked it before. We got to stay healthy. Man, what a full season of Riley Green can even look like. We don't even know yet. So good pick. Who is your pick for our next category? Best pitcher.
I am again going to go with the chalk pick here to take a March Madness term. I'm going to go Tarek Skubal, and I doubt there's any question here. He is currently...
I started typing it before you even said that.
He's currently has the fourth highest odds for AL Cy Young in the preseason. With whoever makes those odds, Vegas, I don't know who, but he's due for a breakout here, and with a full off season and a full workup to the regular season here under his belt, I think he's poised for some really big things.
Yeah, I also picked Skubal, which you may be surprised about. But I also pick Skubal. I think it's the obvious answer is sometimes the easiest and most correct. So I think Skubal is definitely here to stay. I think he has a real chance at that Cy Young vote. The last couple spring starts have obviously just been tune-ups, but he's passed every test he needed to. I don't expect him to come out of the gate throwing 99 after the first inning, but we'll see. He could be pretty hyped up. I expect in the first inning of game one to be throwing 99. It's just who he is. But I hope he doesn't, let all the gas out in that first inning or whatever. I hope he, at least paces himself a little bit. And we need you way more for July and August, Scooby, than we do for April. So just...
Well, we'll take him for April.
Let things happen. I hear you. I know.
We need a good April.
We'll get into that in a little bit, actually. Next category, bullpen MVP.
I think I know where you're going.
So obviously we've made some additions to the bullpen, the Andrew Chafins, the Shelby Millers of the world, and then also we have some reoccurring cast members of the Alex Langs and the Jason Foleys and the Will Vests. And I don't necessarily think this is just who's the closer conversation. I don't necessarily think that this is like the person who has the most amount of saves. Maybe that's where you took it, and that's totally fine. That's a fair pick. But I went with a newcomer. Probably no surprise to you. I went with Shelby Miller. I'm so high on Shelby Miller, dude, and I think it's just a lot of it goes with his pitch mix. A lot of it goes with how just a shrewd pick it was by Scott Harris to go dig deep for Shelby Miller, someone who really flew under the radar with the Dodgers last year, and someone who can close a game if you need him to, and also someone who can pitch 2 or 3 innings if you absolutely need him to. I think he's going to play really, really well in that versatility role in the bullpen that AJ is going to really covet as the year goes on, and I think that he's going to be the dude to really show out. So Shelby Miller is my pick.
I don't hate the pick, and I want to make sure I give the flowers there as well, because I do think he's going to have a great year. I do, and this is somebody made this comparison this week, and I think it's pretty fair. And this, again, speaks more to Miller than it does to the other guy. But I think that this year, Shelby Miller and Tyler Holton will have a very similar looking stat line to the end of the year. When it comes to innings pitched, performance, I think they're both going to take a step in a very good direction this year in the bullpen.
You think Tyler Holton's going to be better than he was last year?
Yep.
Wow.
They're going to give him more of a sample size to look at too.
Didn't he pitch like 70 innings?
I meant like leverage sample size.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, a better year out of Tyler Holton. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
That isn't my pick for bullpen MVP though. My bullpen MVP is going to be Jason Foley. Out of all of the Tigers bullpen arms of the last 2 to 3 years, one guy has remained the most stable, statistically even keeled, and in whatever AJ's asked him to do, he's done. You need him to go out there and get a ground ball, he'll get you a ground ball with the power sinker. You need him to go out there and get a guy to strike out, he'll do that too. He's just been so consistent in this bullpen, and I think that's going to pay dividends this year.
He is 5 to 10% more strikeouts away from being a real contender for delivery man of the year. And I mean, like being on people's radars, like Emmanuel Clase is on people's radars, or Aroldis Chapman is on people's radars. Like he just needs to bump up his strikeout ratio just a little bit. It doesn't have to be 20%, doesn't have to be 15%, but like that 10%, if he can just do that and consistently at least get one strikeout, maybe an appearance or whatever. Oh my gosh. Jason Foley is, he's nasty. He has got some really good stuff, and some argue he could even be the closer this year. I don't know. We'll see. Next category, overall team MVP. So we just did the bullpen MVP. Obviously, this is now the overall team MVP. No surprise here. I'm going again with Riley Green. As you said it, this team lives and dies by Riley Green. He's got to stay healthy. I think I've picked Riley maybe in the last 3 years. I don't know, but I know I picked him last year. And it almost worked out. I mean, if he hadn't, did whatever he did to his arm whenever he dove for that ball. I think the transition to the corner outfield is going to be really good for him. While it might not map out great for him defensively and defensive metrics and whatever, I think as the player that he needs to be at the plate, it's only going to help. And I also think that being able to, as much as I would have loved a JD Martinez signing, we all know, whatever, he's a Met, we get it. I think having that open DH spot and being able to kind of mix and match with that DH spot is going to help out our guys a lot. And specifically Riley Green be able to make it a full 162 games. And what does it look like to have Riley in for 140 plus of those? He can put this team on his shoulders, and he makes everyone better. So he's my MVP.
It's super interesting, the whole conversation about the outfield and his defense. I don't know that his defense is going to suffer as much as people think, because he has Parker Meadows in center now. I think Parker's going to really cover a lot of that area and help him out. Not that Riley won't be able to hold his own. I think Riley will be able to hold his own, but the dividends that we're going to see at the plate because of this move to the corners is going to vastly outweigh any missing defense that we find in the outfield. Mm-hmm. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
My overall team MVP is the same as my best pitcher. It's going to be Tarek Skubal. I think that he's going to be the one name that truly carries this team and really gives the team the national recognition that they're going to deserve. Mm-hmm. When it comes to, he's already got his name out there in a lot of in a lot of people's preseason's predictions. I think it's super important, and I think it's good for overall team morale, being like, yep, everybody else sees what we see. We see that this guy's going to be great, and I think he's going to carry the team this year, especially on the pitching side.
I think it's a very fair pick. And honestly, I'm surprised I didn't pick a pitcher, and it probably would have been Skubal if it was going to be a pitcher. I think that he can be our next Justin Verlander, and we really would have never saw it coming. So next category, Breakout Player of the Year. Who did you have for Breakout Player of the Year?
I don't think that this one's going to surprise you too much, but I went with Parker Meadows. I've been super high on him all offseason, and especially into spring training with what he's shown this spring. He has shown power, and he has shown the outfield defense that is going to really take him some places this year. I think he's going to figure out some of the hiccups he had at the plate this last year, and that defense is not going anywhere. It's not getting any worse anytime soon. So I think he'll have a really, really good year this year.
I also picked Parker Meadows. Maybe to your surprise.
Wow.
Maybe to your surprise. Mostly because of a conversation that we're going to have a little bit later. But Parker Meadows, everything that you just said is 100% true. I think, again, he kind of flew under the radar with the Torques and the Greens and the Kerry Carpenters of the world. And also, I think it's just kind of time to see the new regime. I was really, really torn between him and Colt Keith, and I think it's going to be a neck-and-neck battle right there. But I think for our purposes, and I really think of breakout player of being someone that we kind of aren't thinking of, whereas Colt Keith is pretty much at the forefront of everyone's minds who's a Tigers fan. At least that's the way I interpret breakout player of the year. I think Meadows can be the guy that's like just cruising at 280, 300 something on base percentage, and also has sneaky power, and obviously can steal. I mean, he could steal 50 bases in a year, but who knows if he'll get the chance to. So yes, I also went with Parker Meadows. Comeback player of the year. I think, I don't know, I had one player in mind for this. I don't know who you picked, but I think mine's pretty obvious. I did Javi Baez. Maybe shooting myself in the foot here. He did not have a great spring, even though the last few at-bats were looking a little bit better. Who knows what this pick looks like in June or July or whatever month you want to call it out. But I still have hope in the Javi Baez experiment. I still, even if we just get a little bit of production out of him out of the 8th spot, he no longer has to be the 4-hole hitter that we needed him to be. He can just kind of be another add-on addition to the offense and just be good enough at shortstop and do the flashy play every once in a while and get some recognition. So he is still, whether we like it or not, the guy that everyone thinks of when they think of the Detroit Tigers, for better or worse. And in 2024, he's really got to show why he's one, commanding the contract he is, and two, why he's still on this team. So I'm pulling for him. I know you're pulling for him too, but I'm not sure he's going to be your comeback player of the year. Who do you have?
Yeah, I mean, I've picked my player for two very big reasons. I picked Javier Baez as my comeback player of the year.
Wow. Okay. All right. I brought you over to the dark side.
Until you hear the reasons. Let's not get carried away here.
Okay.
First reason I picked Javier Baez purely because I need to put some good juju into the air, because he's going to need everything he gets this year, or he can get this year to stay on the team. I think he's starting to lose the faith of the front office, I believe, at least with how his performance was to start spring. The second reason is I don't know that he has very far to go to become the comeback player of the year, because it wouldn't take much to get to that level. And to be honest, I think there's not very many other options here. I think the only one that you could truly say is part of the conversation is probably Casey Mize with the surgeries and coming back from the injuries.
What about Alex Lang?
He was on the team all year last year and had a decent year. Like,
I know he was. Yeah. Okay. He lost the job. I mean, I know he kind of earned it back at the end. I know. I get it. I understand. But you can make an argument for Alex Lang.
Yeah.
Joey Wentz, I think, would be a very, very under the radar pick. Yep. He was someone I thought of. I was like, maybe. But I just went with Javi because I'm now married to the bride at this point. And he has been my guy, and I've had to eat through these wonderful spring at bats that we've been subject to. So please, Javi, please stop swinging at sliders that are nowhere near the plate. A little bit sadder categories that I have back to back here, but they're important to at least tabulate and talk about, because there's always some of them. Who do you have as your most disappointing player on the Tigers 2024 roster?
I have a sort of scenario that has played out in my head for this year, and I think these two things are very tied together to one larger storyline for the Detroit Tigers this year. So if you want to go first on this one, I'm gonna marry these two categories together and try to pull it all together here.
Oh, I was also gonna marry these two categories.
Okay. Well, so I will say most disappointing player is Matt Vierling this year.
Really?
This is a really hard category to do, because I don't want to say that any player on this team is going to have a bad year. And I don't know. And I don't have a whole ton of reasoning behind this. The only thing I can truly think of is that a lot of his playing time is going to be taken up by other people. And I think maybe the inconsistent playing time he's going to start to get could play into how his performance is. That's really the only true thing I can think of. What about your most disappointing?
He had a great spring, though. Like, I hear you on that, but he seems to really love this team, and he seems to be right, just the right type of mentality that this clubhouse is looking for. So I don't necessarily know if he cares too much about the playing time. I think he knows he if he really wants more playing time, he's got to do better at third. And obviously I know that conversation gets a little bit more muddy with Gio Urshela, but I think actually good things for Vierling. So I don't know if he's going to be a disappointment. Who I had is really hard for me and kind of pulls at my heartstrings. Kenta Maeda. I am not 100% sold on the Kenta Maeda experiment, and you went ahead and said that you're tying these, I'm assuming, next two categories together, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The next category that we are predicting is player who spends the most time on the IL in 2024. He is also who I'm picking to say spends the most time on the IL, and I don't know if he's over all the Tommy John stuff. I can easily see him getting injured with just a random kind of aging injury that just comes with age. And While he is showing better signs of velocity, I'm not sure he's going to average much more than 90 miles per hour or even 89 miles per hour throughout the whole year. And I can see that start to become a conversation. I think much like Yoshinobu Yamamoto, ironically, if his splitter is not working and players or hitters are not swinging at it, there's not a whole lot else to go to. I know he's working on a sweeper. I know he has a different kind of slider too that's a little bit harder. But yeah, I'm just not convinced yet that he can still consistently get major league hitters out. But I'm very excited to be very wrong about that because I think there's still a good pitcher in there. I also think that the position he's in to kind of carry this rotation, he is going to go second in the second game. He's gonna pitch against the White Sox. I think that's a lot to ask of someone who barely pitched over 100 innings last year. So we'll see how he does. But that he's also my pick for who spends the most time on the IL. So who do you have on the IL the most this year?
So my categories I'm trying to marry here are disappointing, IL, and then our next category. So with our most time on the IL, I have Gio Urshela. And I think that just plays on his recent history here with some of the history of injuries that he's had. I think he's looked okay in spring so far. He seems pretty consistently making contact with the ball. But the last 2 to 3 years, he's just been very injury prone. And I think that's a concern moving forward. And I think that's probably why he didn't sign until as late as he did. The scenario that has kind of worked itself through my thinking on this year is Urshela gets a lot of the playing time to start the year. Because I think he's had a slightly better spring at third base. And then, maybe he gets hurt, maybe, whatever the case may be. Vierling doesn't really take the job necessarily. And then our next category, which is the most surprising call-up, I think somewhere in the middle of the summer, the third base job has just not been really claimed by anybody. A lot of mediocre play, and I think Jace Young has a wonderful, wonderful start to the year in AAA and just takes the job for himself. Excuse me.
Yeah, I could see that narrative coming true. I wonder. I guess if so, you're saying if Urshela goes down, Vierling is the next up.
I think
to really try to take hold of the.
I think Vierling is a part of it, obviously, because it's an open spot and he doesn't really have a solid home. But I don't think anybody really takes a hold of it, whether it's McKinstry or Ibanez or Vierling.
Right. Yeah, I just think that and I cannot believe I'm saying this right now, but I think for some reason we have a lot of depth pieces. I'm not saying we have a lot of depth. I'm saying we have a lot of depth pieces, which is crazy to say because this time, 3 months ago, it felt like we didn't have anything at third base. But now when you kind of collect all of the things that we have at third base and you take into account how great of a spring Ibanez had, and truly we don't talk about it enough that he could take the starting role from Urshela. I just, as much as I would love Jace Young to be on this team, I'm not sure that it's going to make the most amount of sense until like a September call up or whatever. He's going to be this year's Colt Keith where we're just clamoring for it. And it's just, we've seen Scott. We know his acumen. We know his MO. It's just not going to happen. He's going to be 100% ready. We still have to see Justin Henry Malloy. And I know that's an outfield conversation, but I just still to the point of the prospects. Like, if there's anyone who's next up, it's Malloy. And I do think we see him at some point this year. But I just think Young might just be a little bit too soon. And
well, the category is most surprising. So
right, exactly, and then that's just about what I was going to segue into. When it comes to my pick, I went with someone a little bit more. You could argue a little bit more down the totem pole, but really impressed me during spring, and I know impressed you during spring. Brant Herter. Brant Herter doesn't have a lot of places to go. He's going to start the year in AAA. He finished the year in AAA last year. And he looks super good. And he looks like someone that the Tigers really want to take hold of. He just earned AA Pitcher of the Year award when they handed out the awards that they just did for last year for the Erie Seawolves. I think he's a name that I really haven't been looking out for a long time, but I think he's got some really good deception, and I think that his sinker-slider combo is, at the very least, a solid bullpen piece that could replace someone like a Joey Wentz. But then, too, on the upside, I think there's a 3 or 4 starter right there that kind of comes out of nowhere, like the Skubal situation, and we all know what happens when you just get in the majors and you start, doing regular visits with Chris Fetter and start honing in your craft. I mean, you become a Tarek Skubal. So I think Brant Harder's going to get a shot this year, and I think we're going to be surprised at how well he does. So that's my pick for most surprising call-up.
Can we talk about the AAA starting rotation to start this year for a second?
Oh my God, dude, can we just talk about the AAA team, period? They're going to be, they could beat the A's on a regular basis. I mean, wow. It's like not saying a whole lot, but I mean, the Mud Hens, I might actually go see a Mud Hens game this year because they're going to be nasty. Yeah. They're going to be really good. The next one I want to have a little bit of fun with, and we alluded to earlier, our Aprils have been dismal, to say the least, the last couple years. And it seems like we always just get ourselves in a bad spot when it comes to coming out of April. And so we just kind of set ourselves back, and we usually have a negative record. And even AJ has said that he has really focused on this first month to ensure that he has a better start to the 2024 season than he's had in the last couple seasons. They're focused super heavily on this month. Now, there are 30 games in April, including the 3 games that are in March. So there are 30 total games. What do you think, going into May, our record will be?
Now, off the rip, this is going to sound pretty pessimistic, but I need everyone to take into consideration the teams that we play here. My record prediction for the March-April month, if you will, is 14-16. I think there is a lot of very winnable series in the month of April. When it comes to the White Sox, the Oakland A's, Pittsburgh, you've got the Twins at home. You also have the Twins on the road. We got the Royals at home. We got the Cardinals at home. I think a lot of those are very winnable series. We've also got some really, really tough games. I think this series in New York, that second week of the season here, is going to be harder than people are really thinking. I think the Mets are going to be good at home. The Twins aren't going to go away necessarily. We play the Texas Rangers at home. We play the Rays on the road. I do think we end up losing some games that we should win, but I do think we also win some games that we really shouldn't win when it comes to this. And I just think it ends up we don't have a winning record, but when you look at the months that the Tigers have had in April the last 3 years, 14-16 is a vast improvement. It's quite stark in how it will look.
It's almost double.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Double the amount of wins that we came out of. I think you just need to flip those two numbers around. Mm-hmm. So again, I'm very optimistic when it comes into this year, and I hope the first series doesn't make me want to go be very sad again. But I think they will be 16-14 mm-hmm. coming out of April, and I think that sets us up for a very, very successful season. One, because I'm very scared of the reality that AJ lives in if he doesn't have a good April, because I think he'll be very, 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 very upset, and I think the clubhouse will be kind of on edge if that happens because he's been pushing April so much. But then, two, to your point, right, there's winnable games in April, and I think there's obviously going to be ones that we don't win that we should win, and ones that we win that we shouldn't have won. That's just baseball. But I think when you look at the holistic outlook for what our April looks like, I think it's gettable, It's got some tough moments, and I think us coming out at 500, right around 500, even to year 14 and 16, that's still within that 500 reach. I think that's totally fair. I'm just a little bit more optimistic that it's going to be on the more positive half. But yeah, 16, 14, that's where I stand. All right, the big one. Now, I do want to take some credit here, and I want to remind everyone that I was only a game off our overall record prediction last year. I picked 77 wins. They won 78 wins. So they won 78 games. I just wanted to toot my own horn a little bit and say I'm maybe a little bit good at this. Okay. So I'm going to lead us off here and say that I think the 2024 Detroit Tigers, there's a theme here, are also going to flip the record. I think instead of going 77 and 85 this year, they're going to flip it. They're going to go 85 and 77.
Nice.
What do you think, my friend?
Nice. I am one game off of you with my prediction.
Wow.
I'm at 84 and 78, and I think that's still within the margin of error, if you will.
100%.
Yeah. I think that when I come to the separating my prediction from my real desire for this team and how this season to go, I really need to see this team hit 500. If we win 82 games this year, I will be very happy. I will be very, very happy. 84, ecstatic, because I think it gives us a real chance in the Central if we get past 500. So that's where I'm at.
I am ready for my heart to be broken again.
Absolutely.
Are we really ready though? Are we really ready?
I'm not.
No, we're not. I think to your central point, I think it puts us right there in that conversation. I'm not sure there are really too many 80-win teams in this Central Division. So if we're able to sniff 82, but then also going above and beyond it, that is very, very positive and puts us in a lot of different categories, right? One, obviously playoff potential, but then two, we're actually in the conversation nationally at some point. So I am so tired of these MLB ads that have 0 Tigers in any of them, 0 Tiger logos in any of them. It's time for us to just turn some heads again. So I am, again, very optimistic. Probably people screaming into their headphones right now, screaming into their car radios that this is just ridiculous and how could you think that? But I truly think that they have a chance this year, and we'll see how it goes. On that same note, what do you think the Central standings will be? So I think we've both mapped them out, each team, and so we'll just go from bottom to top. And that'll obviously, once we get to second, it'll obviously spoil who we think is going to win the Central. But I think maybe by our records, it might be kind of obvious at this point. But who do you have as the 5th place AL Central team?
I truly hope this is unanimous between the two of us. But I have the Chicago White Sox at number 5.
Yes, that is unanimous.
Okay, good.
That is unanimous. That could be out of spite, but I also think that most predictions and projections have them at the bottom as well. So not too surprising. Who is your 4th?
This is where it gets spicy from here on out, folks. I think everybody needs to buckle up. I have the Kansas City Royals at number 4. I think
I also have the Kansas City Royals at number 4.
You can't buy old tools and expect them to work the same as brand new tools. And
$106 million.
On players all above the age of 32, well, 33 ish. Somebody's gonna get hurt. Everyone always struggles with injuries, and when you get players above the age of 32, 33, that percentage just skyrockets. So something's going to hit the fan there.
I agree. Who's your number 3?
I've got Cleveland at number 3. I've got the Guardians.
Uh-oh. People are gonna think we talked about this beforehand.
Well,
we did not.
My hot take was the Royals at 4, so that was.
I see. I didn't think that was a hot take. I'm right there with you. I think the Royals they're gonna somehow someone's gonna get hurt or they're not gonna go to expectations, whatever it is. But and then the Guardians, they just always find ways to win. But truly this year, like, what did they do? They didn't improve. They arguably got worse.
Well,
and
especially in the manager's office. Terry Francona's probably going to be a Hall of Fame manager. Right. It's not really saying anything.
Right. Oh, 100%. No, right. But it's Vogt, right? Stephen Vogt.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like that pick. I mean, like, he's just fresh off the whole player thing. It's kind of like, no, definitely no Tito. Definitely no Tito. Of course, my number 2, just because I'm probably way too optimistic on this year. The Twins. I have number 2 at the Twins. Do you also have the Twins at number 2?
I do not.
Oh, no. There it is. Okay. All right. There it is. Now, that's the hottest of takes, I think. On a Tigers podcast, you picked them to not win the Central. All right.
That would just picking in the blind. That would just be...
How many games do you think the Twins are going to win?
What's my prediction? 84 for the Tigers? 85 for the Twins. That's what I think. I think it's going to be really close. It's going to come down to the last
one game.
It's going to come down to the last series, I think.
We're going to play another game 163 or something?
It's not a thing anymore. Gosh. Thank goodness.
I get it. But oh man, dude, talk about broken heart. I will actually be a recluse. You will not see me for weeks if that's the case, dude. If it comes down to a game and we lose that game,
I just need the expectation to be set before the year. I do not expect this Tigers team to make the playoffs this year. I need that to be said because I don't. I do not think that this...
That is where my expectations begin and where they end.
Yeah, I know. And that's why you will be a recluse and I will be just sad.
It's true. And that's fair. You're setting yourself up for way happier days down the line.
But then if they win the Central and go to the playoffs...
Right. Very excited.
I will be ecstatic.
Yeah, it comes down to how gettable this division is, dude. And we're going to look back on these years when this team might actually be really, really good. And I'm talking about the Tigers. That is, like, we're going to look back and be like, oh my gosh, why couldn't we just be just a little bit good, a little bit better when we were dealing with 80-ish wins to get to the postseason? Like, I truly think that we're going to regret not doing a couple things, whatever it may be, maybe signing that one player or maybe trading for that one other player, whatever it is, if we don't make the postseason the next 2 years or whatever. But we're not taking advantage of these years, and it's just so easy to get to where we need to be. And it again, I think with how gettable everything is, with how many strides we've made, with how much we're talking about it, I think your expectations just have to be set at the playoffs and then just let things happen. But I love the approach that AJ's taken in the clubhouse. Go win today's game. Don't think about tomorrow's game, that it's always been, right? Same kind of mentality. Everyone's talking about us on this level. Let them talk about it. We have to actually go out and do it. All this stuff is good, but we all know where it's bringing us to. We all know where we want it to bring us to. So that truly is where I'm going to set my bar. But I'm overly optimistic, and I typically make myself sad. So, real quickly, and this will go by pretty quickly, but I found a fun little thing that our friends over at Motor City Metrics podcast have been doing. Great podcast over there by some other fantastic Tiger fanboys that we're gonna take a little bit. It's kind of been going through the X's or the Twitter kind of algorithms or whatever, and it's kind of found its way over to me. But they took I think they're the projection numbers for various different categories and just did a quick over-under on whether, and just gut check of whether you think that that number is correct or incorrect, and if you think that it's going to be obviously over or under that number. So these are probably the topics that everyone is thinking about going into the Tigers season. And so I'm just gonna ask you. I might provide some of my own throughout the way, but I mostly am curious about you and your gut response to a lot of these different over-unders that are going to be posited out there. Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, let's run it.
Okay. So the over-under for Riley Green's games played this year is set at 125.5. Are you over or under on that?
Slightly over. I think it's going to be in the
slightly over
130s. That's my
guess.
I'm
also over, especially if I pick him as my MVP.
Right.
Javi Baez's average over under is set at 230, and you can say 230.5 because you technically need the half there, but 230.5.
Under. Easy under.
So he's comeback player of the year for you, but he's under that.
Kasey, he can hit 210 and still be comeback player of the year. I'm just saying.
I get it, but you need some pop there, and I'm over on it.
He could hit 20 home runs and still hit 210.
Not that much. Oh no, I get it. I mean, have you seen Kyle Schwarber's average the last couple of years? Torkelson weighted runs created plus. Now, just a quick little definition of what runs created are. Runs created estimates a player's offensive contribution in terms of total runs. It combines a player's ability to get on base with his ability to hit for extra bases, then divides those two by the player's total opportunities. And of course, the weighted runs plus is weighted, takes into account the field and all the field, like the actual baseball field they play on most of the time. And then wherever the stat was taken at any given time. And then also the plus obviously averages out to the rest of the major league. So if you're at a 101, you were 1% better than the rest of league average. If you're at a 150, you're at 50% better than the league average. His weighted runs created plus is set at 116.5. Over or under?
Does that seem high to you? I'm not trying to get free.
You break it down, that means no, I know. I hear you. It's you break it down, that means he's at 16.5%, basically 17% above league average of whatever that weighted runs created number is. So I think that's probably pretty close to right in line. I'm willing to go over, especially if he hits 30 home runs again.
Yeah, I would also say over because I'm a Torkelson fanboy. But yeah, that's wow. I'm surprised it is that high.
Meadows triples 6.5.
Over.
Yeah, I'd be willing to take that. Kerry Carpenter RBIs 69.5.
Man, that is tough. I just don't know where he's going to hit in the lineup.
Really?
I think that
interesting.
That number's probably really close.
Really? See, I think it's an easy over.
I would go over, but I think it's probably going to be in the 70s.
Wow. I think 80s is pretty safe for our boy Kerry Carpenter. But I think he hits fourth in the lineup, dude.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Colt Keith home runs, 17.5.
Over.
Yeah. I want it to be over so bad, dude. So bad. Mark Canha, base on balls or walks, 49.5.
Over. Way over.
Really? Wow. I'm willing to say over as well. I don't know if it's way over. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know how many walks he had last year. I could quickly look it up, but or maybe you could grab it well. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be way over, but I think 49.5 is a solid number. Oh, yikes. Riley Green ground ball percentage 47.5%.
What was the percentage?
Ground ball percentage.
No, right. What was the number? Sorry,
47.5.
Oh, for the love of God, I hope it's under.
Yeah. Yep. Same.
That's a really high number.
It's a really high number. Yep. And with how much he's been working on launch angle, I hope that is not that high. Kenta Maeda wins for the year, 8.5.
Under.
Wow. Yeah, man. So you're kind of on the disappointing player thing. I think, yeah.
Wins are
I don't even know enough. It's true. They are overrated, but 8.5 is low, dude. Mm-hmm. It's not a lot. Here you go, buddy. Tarek Skubal strikeouts, 150.5.
Over. I think he's pushing 200 this year.
200. Wow. Well, you are bullish on our boy Scooby. Yeah, I think he's. I don't think he necessarily maybe gets 200, but I think he's over that number.
I think he pushes it. I don't necessarily think he goes over 200.
Yeah. Jack Flaherty game starts 21.5.
Ooh. Oh man, I'd love to say over, but I don't think I can.
Yeah.
No.
21.5, dude. I'm gonna be very bullish. I think he had an amazing spring. I meant to say it too earlier when like he's my dark horse for pitcher of the year. Kind of like the asterisk choice if I could pick two. He's looked so good in spring, and I know he had that one kind of outing that was not great, but he's just as a pitcher as a whole, he's just looked so much better. So I'm gonna go in the over, but I can completely understand the under too. He could be another one that gets hurt. So, jeez, let's hope it doesn't happen. Casey Mize ERA 4.5. Or sorry, 4.15, not 4. 4.15.
You're going to hate me, but I think it's over, but I don't think it's by much. I think he has some rough starts to start the year, and he has to kind of work his way back from it.
No, let me ask you, is that because of innings total, or is that because he actually is not doing too hot? Like, do you think that's just sample size, so like he doesn't have that many innings, so it can't be affected or it's drastically affected rather by one outing, or do you think that it actually just he is not that great?
To start the year, I think it's due to performance. I think he takes some time to find his groove, and then the innings do probably end up playing a role once he does find his groove. It just in the number itself, not necessarily in the performance. I do think he ends up having a decent year.
Okay. I'm gonna go under, but just because I love Casey. Reese Olson innings pitched 105.5.
And they're gonna need innings from somewhere. So I'm gonna go over, but probably not.
I'm telling you, man. I think it's just Matt Manning is gonna be on this team again at some point, but whatever. Yeah, but they're gonna need They're gonna need innings from someone, and it's gonna be one of those people. So, on the Matt Manning topic, Manning average fastball velocity in the majors. We'll put in parentheses in the majors once he comes back. Over under 93.9.
Man, now I wish I paid more attention to his velocity in spring.
It was up. It was up in spring.
Like it was better than that. I'm gonna go over. Hopefully, he has the arm to continue it once he does get to the majors.
Yeah, I also think it's over, but it's very close. It's so close. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how many starts he ends up getting in the majors. But Alex Lang saves total for the year 20.5.
Over.
You were such an Alex Lang stan.
I believe in the stuff.
I love the guy too. Don't get. It is going to be under. I'm right. Mostly, and again, it's less about him. It's less about him, and it's more about the people around him. I think that there will be a closer by committee at the very least, and then I think someone's going to come and take his job. But he did look a lot better at the end of spring. I will give him that.
Also,
straightened up his mechanics a little bit.
The thing that will derail this prediction as well is the whole AJ's going to use the best pitcher at the most pivotal time in the game, kind of.
Yeah, he hates closers.
Yeah. So it's probably a dumb over by me, but, here we are.
Yeah. I mean, he had 27 last year or whatever. So, I mean, like, that's, yeah. Prospect debuts, 5.5.
I really wish I knew what last year was. I don't think it was much, was it? No, Reese Olson.
Well, it was Meadows. It was quite a few, actually, because you had Sawyer, Tyler Holton. No, it was quite a few.
Okay.
Because you're going to start rattling them off.
Yeah.
Reese Olson, Parker
you
Meadows.
Think about him, you're like, oh, wait, wow, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's quite a few.
Under.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it will be very, very hard to get on this team, especially if you're a prospect. And we learned that, some would argue, the hard way last year. So I think the prospect debuts will be way down this year, thankfully so. And this is less over-under, but just kind of where we're at with kind of going on your situation with the tandem, or I guess the triune of the categories that you tied together with the third base situation. Most games played at third base of the collective that we have as an option. You can throw Jace Young in there if you want to, but most games played at third base will be
Andy Ibanez.
Wow. Yeah. I like that pick too. I really like Urshela. I think he's a really good dynamic to this team. If he doesn't need to create power or whatever, he has a really good contact tool. So I'm pulling for Urshela. But you're right, he could be hurt. We don't know. The pelvis is unfortunately not an injury that happens all too common, and there isn't a really great timetable for the return and stuff. So while he's made it back, who knows what it looks like now that he is back. So Ibanez is a very, very fair pick. Again, thank you guys so much for allowing us to steal the Motor City metrics topics there. Regilio Castillo is the guy who kind of heads a lot of that up. He also does the Tigers minor league report, so they do awesome work. Go check out their stuff too. But once I saw that, I was like, we gotta get these on the record for our picks, because they're all topics that going into the year are very, very top of mind for a lot of these different categories and such. So we, of course, have some hot takes to go over. And I think this might get a little heated. So I've prepared some hot takes to start out the year. You've prepared some hot takes. Do you want to go first, buddy? Do you want me to go first? Where are we at?
Why don't you go first? I'd like to see where this goes.
Okay. All right.
I think mine are we've already had conversations about some of mine, but I don't really know much about yours.
Oh, you're going to hate my first one. Hot take number 1. We do not see Jackson Jobe in a Tigers uniform in 2024.
I think we need to go back to the definition of hot. I think we both have said that that's preferable. We would really like to not see him this year if all things go well. And 2, it's very hard to crack this team as a prospect. So
okay, but you look at Tiger's Twitter and the world wants him up. Okay, so like I'm just going off of. I understand that maybe you and I are a little bit different, but people are saying that Jackson Jobe, if he didn't break camp, this would be just a demonstrative thing. So I think that it just, yes, he had a great debut, he had a great 1 inning, but Jackson Jobe will not be in a Tigers uniform in 2024, even though his ETA is 2024. Mm-hmm. We all know Scott Harris does not care. All right, what's your first
one? My first one is that the Tigers have a player on their team who gets more Rookie of the Year votes than Evan Carter of the Texas Rangers this year, and his name is Parker Meadows.
Okay, you did say his name. Okay, I was gonna say, you're not gonna say his name now. This is.
I had to build up.
I was like, "There's no shot you're gonna make this go live, and you're gonna say that it's just some player. It's, it could be Colt Keith, it could Could be Jackson Jobe. It could be any like it. Oh no. Okay. On record, Parker Meadows gets more Rookie of the Year votes than Evan Carter.
And
that is your hot
to
take.
be clear, this is a
You are crazy.
two-headed sword or two-head. Wow, I'm mixing metaphors now. This is a two-edged sword with this take. I think partially Parker Meadows, as I said earlier, is going to have a great breakout year. And I think part of it is that Evan Carter is not going to have technically the sophomore season that everybody is saying he is. A lot of his success came in the playoffs. A lot of his success came in a very protected bubble scenario against very good pitching, mind you. But there's going to be a lot more tape out on him this year, and I think that he's going to struggle against teams with a game plan against him. Again, I think this is more of an Evan Carter take rather than a Parker Meadows take, but I do think Parker Meadows has a good enough year this year to get Rookie of the Year votes. And that's what I think a lot of people should take from this take.
One, how is the postseason a protected bubble? I mean, you are in the face of every adversity you've ever faced in your life. Your nerves have got to be through the roof, and you're playing against some of the best pitching that you're ever gonna face. I don't know, like how is it he showed up when it mattered most. He has ice in his veins. So that's one thing. But then two, I think you're also underselling a little bit the popularity contest that a lot of these awards are. Everyone knows who Evan Carter is. No one knows who Parker Meadows is, and it's not going to change throughout the year. I'm just here to tell you, Parker Meadows can have an amazing year, and we all know that he could warrant some Rookie of the Year votes. I don't necessarily. When you have people like Jackson Holiday, when you have people like Evan Carter, when you have people like Paul Skeens who could make their debut, I mean, these are just such huge names, dude, that I would love to be wrong about this, but Parker Meadows he won't even get one Rookie of the Year vote, and that's just I hate it, but I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't know.
You still got to go out there and play the games, and if you have a bad year,
it's true. 100%.
They're not going to vote for you.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. Yes, I also don't think that Evan Carter's going to have a bad year. I think, sorry, he also plays with someone else that might outshine him named Wyatt Langford. Who
that could be a problem.
Literally carried 1,000 OPS in every level he's hit at going back to college, and also had a chance to be on the 2024 Detroit Tigers, but we will not talk about that here. My second hot take also goes along with the Rookie of the Year votes. Colt Keith gets Rookie of the Year votes, but does not win. I did not have the heart to say that he could win the Rookie of the Year, as I would love it to be the case. He's going to get a vote or two, but he will not win the Rookie of the Year. Is that not hot enough for you?
Well, it's hot enough because you just made all of those points to the contrary of why your guy won't win.
Well, right, but however, I do think while Parker Meadows doesn't have a lot of national recognition, I think Colt Keith is a little bit more on the map because of his extension.
Yeah, well, what about
I think there was a lot of publicity.
And Holiday and Wyatt Langford.
100%. Again, people at least know who Colt Keith is.
We'll see. We'll see. That's why this is a hot takes category and not a mediocre friendly takes conversation.
Hey man, I'm excited for your next one.
My next one, Tarek Skubal wins the Cy Young.
Wow. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. That's crazy. That's so great. And we don't win the Central? God, it's ridiculous. I think that's your hottest take so far.
More than Parker Meadows, because you seem to put a big fight up against the Meadows take.
Yeah, it's just we'll see. We'll revisit this and just both feel like idiots.
Well, we do every year, so may as well,
I think that's fair. He's got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to stay on the mound for the entirety of the year, which he has not done yet. So
why not this year?
While I think that he may get, I get it. While I think that he may get some votes, I don't see that happening. But man, would I love to be wrong.
Cole's hurt, my man. There's an opening.
Garrett Cole is hurt.
gap.
You're right. Along with Jacob DeGrom, along with Max Scherzer, along with Justin Verlander. Yeah, I mean, but there's also plenty of other players that could make. You're forgetting about another lefty that's in Tampa Bay that pretty much sniffs the Cy Young every year that he pitches for longer than 100 innings, which is Shane McClanahan.
He's out, my friend.
He's still out?
Yeah, he got hurt middle.
I thought he came back.
Got hurt middle of last year. He had Tommy John.
Oh, he had Tommy John though. I thought he was coming back.
No, he had the shoulder deal. I think either Tommy John or the shoulder deal. But
Yeah.
he shouldn't pitch until at least July this year.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Well, his teammate's no longer in the American League, so you at least got that going for you in Tyler Glass now. So yeah. I mean, I think there could be a lot of stars that align for Terry Skubal, but you still have to overcome a lot of your own personal demons.
If Rick Porcello can win one, Terry Skubal can win one.
All right. We all know that was Justin Verlander's, and it's not even a question. My third one. My penultimate one, if you may. I don't know how many you did, but I did 4.
That's all I got. So all you, buddy.
Okay. So you only did 2.
Yep.
Wow.
I thought my 2 were bangers enough to carry me here.
Okay. All right. Josh, what is the thing that we've had dating back to? I think it's been the last 5 years, but I could be wrong with one of those. But I'm 99% sure it's been 5 years at least. That comes around at the middle of the season that we just pretty much ignore because we're never a part of it.
Well, when you started off with what we've had for the last 5 years, I was going to go with crippling depression, but I'm assuming you're talking about the trade deadline?
No. I'm talking about the All-Star game.
Oh.
Now, I am now going to alter what I'm about to say. We did have one extra player. It was Miggy the year before. It was 2022 that we had him because they gave him like that honorary admission to the All-Star game. But he didn't necessarily earn his way in there. But no, we've had one member go to the All-Star game for the last 5-ish seasons, whatever it is. And I'm flipping tired of it. And if we're going to win the Central, we need some bangers. Okay? So I'm going to say to you that we're going to have 4 All-Star representatives.
I think it's a hot take to say 2.
4, Josh. We're going to have 4.
Do you have, would you care to?
Nope, I have no names. I have no names. No names. I'm not willing to say that.
I'm not putting
my name on that.
to create a pool of players you would like to pull from.
I mean,
no, that's okay.
The obvious picks, but no, 4. We will have 4.
Got it.
And for my final hot take, we're all big on this. Maybe the Tigers make it. Maybe. Oh yeah, damn! I forgot to ask. The you not winning the Central, that obviously means that we're in the wild card, right?
Conversation. I don't think 84 wins us the wild card. Have you seen the AL East?
Okay. All right. Yep. Okay. That's fair. Yep. Okay. That's fair. So it's going to be the same situation as last year where the only way into the playoffs for us is to win the division.
Yeah, I think that's obvious for this year.
Okay. Well, for me, if I think that they're going to go to the postseason, I need to say what's going to happen in the postseason. So I think the Tigers in 2024 will make it past the first round of the playoffs.
You remember what I was talking about with crippling depression?
No. This isn't. No, again, see, this is an expectation. If we make it to the playoffs, that's where I'm at. I'm very excited about that. But if I'm willing to say that they're going to go to the playoffs, like anything can happen in the playoffs. So I'm willing to say that we are a sleeper team. We get hot. We got those vibes. Come on. The Diamondbacks beat the Dodgers last year. It can happen. And they swept them, nonetheless. So anyone can beat anyone in the playoffs. I don't think we go very deep in the playoffs, but if we're going to make it, if we're going to win the Central, let's at least put out for a little bit. But that is my final hot take. Did those get spicy enough for you there at the end?
Yeah. Yep. Cleared mine. That's for sure.
Yep. Oh, man, buddy. We have real baseball games we're going to be talking about once we come back next week. So, Tigers kick off the year in Chicago. Tarek Skubal goes for game 1. Kenta Maeda goes for game 2, and Jack Flaherty goes game 3. That is what we know as of right now. We don't know. We still, of course, don't have the full roster set up, but we know the position players that have made it, obviously. We just have a couple more bullpen spots to figure out. We have one more game of spring training against the Rays. That's kind of like the last foray. Mize is pitching that game, so it's safe to say that I think Mize would go 4th then. On Sunday or on Monday, I think if we play Monday, I don't know. I haven't looked that far ahead in the schedule, but and then Reese Olson would follow him in 5th spot. So we are finally here. We have finally made it. Baseball is upon us. I am again ready for my heart to be broken. What about you, buddy?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've made it clear in this episode that we think very highly of this team, and if that would go wrong, I think we can both clearly say that we will need some counseling. But, what would baseball season be if we weren't overly optimistic?
Do you know a good counselor? Maybe I could steal yours.
I'll let him know. I'll let him know.
Oh, that wasn't like a jab at you, buddy. That wasn't like, okay, I'm sorry. I don't know if you go see a counselor, but if you do, I'm really excited for you. You should. That's a very healthy thing to do. We haven't talked about this. How are you going to watch the game on Thursday?
I have not 100% decided yet. This may be news to my good friend Will, who listens to this episode, but I may go in early Thursday and leave early.
Wow! That's even an option?
And see if I can view the game from home. I have not decided yet, though. It is an undecided thing, but I will find some way to view it. That is 100% for sure.
Yes, of course. I will be fixated on my couch, in a love seat, or in a very comfortable chair at the very least, the whole day. And MLB Network's doing this Baseball Eve thing on Wednesday. And I won't be able to watch all of that, but I'm going to watch some of that. And oh my gosh. This truly is like our adult Christmas, dude.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like I don't get excited about Christmas that much anymore. I don't think many adults really do. But I remember those feelings of being up at 3 a.m, 4 a.m, when, Santa was coming. Santa was on his way with the gifts. And, you're just so excited. You can't even wait for anyone else to make the first move and get up, and you have to be up at 6 a.m. and then go open presents. This is what we're feeling. And I honestly, like, what I appreciate so much now is that, like, I'm obviously looking forward to 4 p.m. when the Tigers game is on, but, like, even 1:15 is when the first game starts, and like I'm just so stoked for that. And then like 4 p.m. will come soon enough, you know what I mean, or whatever. But like I'm just excited for all the storylines, all the things. Juan Soto's a Yankee, Shohei Ohtani's a Dodger, flipping Dylan Cease is a Padre. I mean, like Blake Snell is a Giant. Like, I mean, there's just like, there's so many things that are to be excited for, and like so many storylines to really keep an eye on. And whew, man, we are going to come in hot next week. Again, fresh off of hopefully a series sweep of the White Sox, of our most, we love the White Sox here, don't we? We absolutely, we love that.
Friends of the pod, you might say.
Yep. We haven't made any enemies over there or anything. No. Honestly, now that Tim Anderson's not there, kind of hate him less. Already. You know what I mean?
What, they've got 3 major league players and their AAA team? Is that? I think that's all they got, right?
Jeez. All right. Really hope Tim Anderson never hears this podcast. Josh, where can the kids find us?
We are on all of the socials at Old English D Pod. We will be releasing our weekly podcast with some game review type, takeaways and things every week now. When it comes to the regular season, if you have specific things you want us to talk about, let us know. If not, you will get outlandish takes, unbridled optimism, and crippling depression if the team does not do well. That is what you can expect.
that is a really good summation of what we can find here at the Old English Depot. That is very true. Josh, thank you so much for joining me. Guys, as always, thank you so much for listening. And as always, go Tigers.